Tom here. So we're doing a little bit of a potpourri episode today. I say today, but really what I mean is over a few days because we got a bunch of stuff that we're putting together. Now I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. The IROC is still going. It's still a major concern. It's still the primary focus. But the stuff that we have to do on the IROC now is a lot, and it's a lot of little things. So I'm trying to film those as we go, piece by piece, and then hopefully come back to something a little bit more comprehensive for you, instead of you guys just watching episode after episode of us stripping wires back. So in the meantime, there's a few things to do on the Chevelle that I want to get done and taken care of, and I figure I might as well take you along on that journey with me. So here we go. We've actually come a pretty long way since the last time I think I talked to you guys through the Chevelle and what we were doing with it, what I had done to it. So let me take you through some of the small things that I did already. One of the things we did was to install a throttle bracket. What I had on there before was really sort of makeshift. I put on a real throttle bracket this time. Makes the throttle a lot more consistent, and it's just safer. We cleaned up some of our wires. So I got some of the wiring loom. This is the F6 stuff, the wrap that you can get from Wire Care. Threw that in there. We did have a heater core leak. So I disconnected the heater core and removed those hoses, and then just plugged the holes in the manifold and the water pump for now. I do have the new heater core. It's one of the things we're looking to do. So let's talk about the stuff that, that I want to do. And before I forget, the big elephant in the room. Yeah, you see that? This, in the hands of someone who's stupid, can cause some serious problems. So, let me catch you up. Now, just a few weeks ago, you guys remember that I put in a new cold case radiator and the cold case fan kit to go with it, all with the intention of really bringing the temperature of this car down, because that was a chronic issue that I had with the 350, and I knew it was from the very tiny single core radiator that was trying to cool off that motor. So I was very happy with the setup, but I ran into a couple of problems. The first time I ran into a problem was overheating pulling into a car show. That turned out to be a very, very simple thing where I had just lost a ground. I fixed that situation so that we weren't losing the ground. So the radiator fans were turning on again, and that was going okay. But I was having another issue. I would drive this thing around and it was acting fine, and then would suddenly spike. And when I say spike, I mean it went from tooling around at 175, doing great, to shooting up to like 250 within the matter of a couple of minutes. So a couple of times this happened to me. I pulled the car over immediately, didn't put hard effort into it or full throttle or anything like that. We just coasted to a stop, cooled it off. And every time it would be the same thing. I'd shut it off, let it cool off, and then when I turned it back on, everything would seem right as rain again. It was really unpredictable when this would happen. It wasn't just highway, it wasn't just back roads, it wasn't just hot days. It was really weird. Could not figure it out. I finally broke down, took the gooseneck off, and then took out the thermostat and tested it. And sure enough, it was fine. It's a 180-degree thermostat, and it was testing okay. I could have just thrown a 160 thermostat in it, but I always feel like when you do that, it's lazy, right? You don't actually want your engine to be cruising around at 160 degrees. So putting in a 160-degree thermostat to sort of fix an overheating issue is kind of a cheat, as is just completely drilling it out. And this is New England. I don't want it to do that. I need it in cooler weather to operate and stay closed. Could not figure out what it is. And I finally had this sort of epiphany. And I said, hey, maybe the bottom radiator hose is sucking closed. I never replaced the bottom radiator hose. That's the original one that was on here. I'll bet you that's it. So I just went out and bought a new lower radiator hose, and I replaced it. And in the process of replacing it, once I dragged the pan out from underneath the car with the old radiator hose in it and a bunch of coolant, I found this. Yeah, see that? This is the cap that came on the radiator that is just used to plug the holes in the radiator, plug the outlets and the inlets in the radiator, just to keep gunk from getting inside of them. You're supposed to remove them before you put the radiator in the car. I am a dangerous idiot. What had happened, and this is not making it okay for me, but I feel like I need to confess to you guys that I made a mistake this idiotic and this big. I left this in when I painted the radiator black, and I did remember to take it out of the top connector on the radiator when I installed it, but I didn't take it out of the bottom one, and because this was oversprayed with black paint, I didn't see it at all down there. It just looked like it was open. So what was happening is this had popped out of the radiator, so it wasn't closing off the radiator, but it was sort of spinning and tumbling inside the hose. And what was happening was when the temperature was spiking, it's because this thing was flattening out and getting sucked against the pump probably, and blocking most, if not all, of the water flow. Temperature spikes up like crazy. Then when I would shut the car off and that suction would relax, this thing I'm sure would tumble and rest into a different position and allow water through. End result is, this was my problem all along. Once I took that piece of garbage out, this thing did perfectly, and it's been running perfectly ever since. So fortunately, I did go ahead and drop the oil because a couple of times of overheating that much, I didn't want to take the chance that I had sort of ruined that oil, lowered the viscosity of it. I also wanted to just double check that it wasn't polluted. You know, you run a car that hot, you do run the risk of blowing out your head gaskets or worse. I just wanted to make sure everything was healthy. The good story is everything is perfectly healthy and fine. The oil was nice and clean. It's not milkshaked at all. We're all good there. There's no metal, no debris inside the oil. That's all clean. I cut apart the oil filter as well. That's all clean. No metallic, nothing in that. And I went through and have been looking at the antifreeze that we dropped out of it, and I've been consistently checking what's in there, and that all looks good. So I don't believe that I have hurt anything, thank God, but that's what's making me a dangerous idiot, because this isn't just something dumb and embarrassing. I could have really hurt this motor because of that, and it's really a terribly avoidable thing. So anyway, that's my share. If you question whether or not I'm being honest with you guys, or whether I'm sort of admitting to my own faults and inadequacies as a mechanic, well, now you heard it. That's a pretty dumb move, and it's just because I was rushing. So take your time. Take your time. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. I know it's a little bit tough to get a visual on, but when I had the engine out of this and sprayed the whole engine bay, I didn't realize it until it was a little too late, but I have some holidays in here and they drive me nuts. I don't think most other people see them when they look over the car, but they drive me crazy. So you can see it right in there on the fender wall. We've got basically primer showing through. Bugs me like nuts, and I want to fix it. We've also got a little bit over on the other side of the car, but I think I'm actually going to save that for a little bit later. We are going to have to remove that cover for the heater core. And so when that happens, it might be a better time to get in there and spray. So I'm not going to bother with that one right now. Aluminum foil is kind of an unsung hero, and it works great for masking when you're doing painting. This would be a real pain to tape up, but I can just get in here with the aluminum foil and do the same thing. And because it's very moldable, I can make sure that it's not going to be touching the firewall, or not firewall, sorry, the wheel well. It doesn't quite have the integrity of tape, so you do have to be a little bit careful with it. but it's just so moldable. All right, now I want to get in here and probably tape this off. And a funny story about that stupid little cap. Mike, Mystery Mike, was the first person I ran out to and told. He's usually the first person I confess my biggest car sins to. Not because he understands and forgives me, but because he really gives me the crap that I deserve when I make these mistakes. And so he was the one that I first coined the phrase dangerous idiot to. And he latched onto it a little too quickly for my liking, but you know, whatever, it's deserved. They say you can't give yourself your own nickname, but I think in this case I'm going to be allowed. All right, so we're taped off. It's time to hit this thing up. I'm going to try hitting some backsides here before I even move around, because these are sort of hidden. All right, that's it for real. I'm resisting the urge to go nuts and start spraying a bunch of other stuff because that's where I always make mistakes. So we're just going to leave that. That's the part that was bugging me. We're done. It's time to move on. You know, I really hope this isn't just me, but I tend to sometimes get really paralyzed when I'm looking for stuff that's going to be a good aesthetic match in the engine, right? The green valve covers, even the green air filter, which I'm not 100% sold on. Tell me what you think about the green air filter in the engine. I'm not 100% sold. It might be too light. I do like the green valve covers. Those should stand. But whenever I start looking for those things, I always get a little bit hung up in my own head over it. And that is exactly what happened when I started looking for some way to better wrangle my spark plug wires. So let me show you what I got going on that I don't like. So the current issue that I have with the spark plug wires is a couple of things. Functionally, it's just really, really hard to keep them off the headers. So there's just not a lot of room in there, and you've got to keep these things at a pretty specific angle. I've got all sorts of wire ties and holders in there temporarily just to make sure that things stay, and that's a challenge. The second big problem is more back here, and that is that rat's nest of wires. They're not exactly the right length. So I do think I have to go back and shorten some of those cables. But I don't want to do that until I have the organization of the wires taken care of nearer the headers. And so that is where we bring you to next. This is what I ended up going with. It's from RM Specialties or R&M Specialties. They are one of the big guys, one of the big players in this stuff. I looked at a bunch of different sites and a bunch of different options. And frankly, not in love with any of them. But this was the closest one that I found to something that I can get behind. So we're gonna go ahead and install this today, get our wires cleaned up, and then hopefully once the wires are cleaned up, and loomed in the right place, then I'll feel better about shortening them at the terminal end by the distributor cap. I do have some new terminals and new boots to put on those so that we can get everything dialed in at the right length so that the wires look good. So join me. So overall, this is not too much of a challenge. So these pieces rest on they use the valve cover bolts to hang off of. And then they hang out over the headers, and the wires get loomed across the top. They do include these little spacers so that you can put them underneath the loom piece so that they can attach to the valve cover and sort of stand off a little bit. So we're going to open this up and see if we can't start it off. This is actually going to fit pretty darn well. So let me see how much I have to do to get things pre-arranged. There's two sides to this, so I want to get my stuff sorted correctly. All right, sort of the first step on this side, I guess, is let's get these bolts off this valve cover. I have had some leaking issues. Pretty significant oil leak actually from this valve cover, which caused me to have to sort of remove it and resituate the gasket. I didn't have another gasket to replace it with at the time, so I didn't. I just tried to fix the one that was on there. Well, now the oil leak seems to have stopped, and there's no way I'm taking the cover off again just to replace it with another gasket to fix a leak that it looks like I already fixed. So this is one of those let sleeping dogs lie things. And we are letting this sleeping dog lie, as long as he'd like. So the option exists in this kit to use those spacers. I'm opting not to. I think this is going to give me a bit more control if I can just come in nice and low here. So the first concern here is just going to be to try to get the wires into the actual holders. And then after we've done that, we'll worry about the tension and the gaps and stuff. Looks like I'm going to take some old ones off first though. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, you agonized over the decision of which of these stupid things you decided to put in your car? Well, yeah. I don't know if there's good reason for that. I don't know if there can be good reason for that, but to me it's a good reason. I care about the way this engine compartment looks, and there are different choices that can be made when it comes to what you're going to put in there. And lots of them. So I wanted to make sure that I was choosing something that I really wanted, because I have a habit of just sort of buying what's available and just getting it done. But in this case, these things are not always inexpensive. Like, there's some really cheap ones out there that are just kind of garbagey. And then there's some like these that you know, they're not going to break the bank necessarily, but they're not free either. So I wanted to make sure that when I was making the call, I had put some thought into it, and it wasn't just some sort of random slap happy deal where it was like, yeah, I'll just grab it from Summit. And the style is important. There's multiple different styles of these things. And the looks too, because I got enough stuff going on here with like billet and polish that I didn't want to do anything crazy. Of course it did that. Much more better. Yeah, so you can see how the wire loom works. We got a nice tight keeping on all of those wires. So now they are routed properly. Everything's nicely aligned and cleaned. Well, actually, not actually cleaned. I need to sort of spray some stuff on here to clean it, but you know, visually it's aligned. Let's put it that way. We still have the wire mess to deal with behind the loom that comes from extra wires, but we're going to figure that out later. For now, we're just going to worry about getting these looms on there, because that's the pretty big important part to me. So done on this side. It's probably time to take the tape and masking off of the brake master cylinder now. Done here. Now just rinse and repeat on the passenger side. All right, kids, that's those in. So let's take a look at one side. The driver's side I actually think is pretty clean. I'm going to sort of wipe those down a little bit, but I think we got that attacked pretty well. All of those looms are keeping the plugs in a good position, keeping things off the wire. I think that third plug back, I'm going to have to, let me kind of hide them. I think I'm going to have to do something and try to zip tie that wire to something else. It's just in a weird spot where the loom lies. Nothing wrong with it, it's just luck. The other side is a slightly different story, unfortunately. So the loom's working great, but I've got two wires that, if I'm being honest, just aren't long enough. They won't even fit through the back part of the loom. It's kind of hard to see that, but with the dipstick in the way. But I had to leave those two middle slots open because those wires they're not long enough. They don't make it back to the cap if I try to run them through that loom. So hard to stretch the wires. So I'm going to have to see if maybe I buy individual plug wires, or if I just deal with it. And I'm kind of opting for dealing with it right now. So again, what do you guys think of this green filter? I'm thinking it needs to get a little dirty, break in a little bit, get darker, but I'm kind of okay with it. I've been really sort of wrestling with what to do with that. Anyway. So one of the other things that I wanted to be able to do on the car while I'm kind of farting around is to be able to change my headlights. Now, last year, maybe even the year before, I did go ahead and upgrade my low beams, upgraded them to an LED, and it was important to me when I was looking for an LED that A, I did not go broke doing it, and B, that it didn't look like an LED from the outside. I wasn't really cool with the idea of making this thing look like Knight Rider, giving it those halos that everybody uses, or using a bunch of funky colors and things like that. Just wasn't into it. No problem if that's what you like. I didn't want it on this car. Plus, these things are expensive. So switching to those LED housings, LED bulbs, it is not an inexpensive thing to do. I don't care who you go with as a brand, they're all money. It's gone are the days of trying to replace one of these things for like 20 bucks. It doesn't happen. It's a few $100 a bulb when you replace them. So I knew I wasn't going to do high beams and low beams at the same time. It's just too much money. So I found a company called Vintage Car LEDs. And they are not a sponsor or anything. In fact, they never got back to me about trying to help me out with any of this. So really not a sponsor. But they do make a good product. And they made these, which look an awful lot like just the regular sealed beam lights. They have sort of a flat face to them, which is the biggest giveaway. But I mean, you guys tell me, from that distance looking at it on camera, I bet you really can't tell a huge difference between the two. So I replaced those low beams and I'm super happy with them. I'm driving this thing at night, which I don't do a lot, but when I do it, man, it's money. It's just like driving in a new car. It's a lot of light. But I haven't changed the low beams over. That was always intended to do. I bought them and they've been sitting on a table in the basement for a couple months, I think. So we're gonna get those changed out. Let me show you what we're dealing with. So this is our stuff right here. This is the vintage LEDs. You can see their little logo on there. And what this basically is an open housing. So it's not a completely sealed unit. It's an open housing with their LED inside of it. So that's why it looks so good. It's basically a hella light housing that is the H4, the right fit for us to be able to put in. But it uses their LED and transformer in the back. With this pigtail plug. So really, all we got to do is route this in. Now there is some concern on this one. I haven't checked this to see how well it's going to fit yet. They do tell you right on the website that you may have to do a little bit of trimming and housing correction to get this to work on the high beam side. That's the inboard headlights. So we're going to see if that's true. When they say this is going to require some alteration, or might require some alteration of the housing, for the high beams, this is what they mean. This sort of teardrop shape that's cut in the car here, in that front fairing, that is not going to allow this to come through. This is just not a math equation that you're going to get around. That space is not big enough. So I'm going to have to cut out a little bit of that housing to clearance that. I'm just going to try to do that with as little disruption as possible. We'll see how that works. All right, so we're going to take this, which is our new headlight bucket. Toss it in here. And see if we can align. And we're aligned. So there are some notches in this that will let you line this thing up so that it's up and down correctly. Now we'll see if this housing is going to fit us. Again, another specific orientation, only goes one way. There it is. All right. Yeah, it looks like we're fitting. Now, and we'll just hope these self-tappers are the right size. Entirely possible that they're not. They seem to be doing the trick. They're doing the thing. It holds it. All right, let's go get this in. Feed our spring back in. There's a little spring on the back here that sort of helps to keep these things planted. Well, the sole biggest problem with this was the spring. Trying to get that spring loaded in. But managed to get it in there with a little hook, a pick. And now we're successful. So now we're just putting the adjusters back in and we'll be back in business. I'm not really trying to get these things wholesale adjusted. We're just trying to get rough. Just that easy. I'm just going to make this simple connection in the back. What do you think of that? So here's our difference. That's our new, this was our old high beam, our old low beam with the LED. This is our new high beam LED. Now, for contrast, this is the passenger side that we haven't done yet. This is our high or low beam LED that we put on, what, a year ago? This is the standard sealed beam incandescent. Blah. Whew, horrible. So, old badness, new hotness together. Yeah, I think we do it with the driver's side for sure on that one, yeah? Mm-hmm. All right, so now it's just a matter of doing that on the passenger side, which is going to be way harder because the battery's there. But we've got a little cheating done on this one now. We know we have to trim, so we're just going to go ahead and trim that right from the front side. Not even going to bother messing it around. So we'll trim that housing out to get that piece in, and that should go a lot smoother. So I won't even bother showing you that one. Just trust. We're going to have the new goodness when they're all done. All right, not sure how well we're going to actually hear me on this, but worst comes to worst, I'll just let you hear the engine noise and voice it over. But it is not completely dark yet. The sky's still a little bit light. But the regular LED low beams doing a great job. Wait till I get to the dark stretch here, and I'll show you the high beams. So not a lot of street lights here, and no traffic in front of me. So this is low beams, and that's your highs. That's pretty awesome. Back to low again, and car coming up. Pretty bright. Still need to be aimed a little bit, but that's pretty awesome. And I got to admit, the older I get, the more I need those brights. LEDs are working like a charm. So the last thing that I'm going to try to do is install these. They're LED taillights. I'm usually not a big fan of LED everything, or at least not flashy LEDs. And these, admittedly, kind of flashy. But I saw them on another guy's Chevelle and I really liked them. And I'll tell you why. So these cars, because they're older, do not come with third tail lights. There's no way I'm putting a third brake light on this car. That's just gross to me. But the challenge with regular taillights and the incandescent bulbs is they're not terribly bright. And although I'm confident in my driving, I'm not confident in anybody else's. So I'm always a little bit worried that somebody's not going to see my brake lights crash into me. So I saw this guy's taillights and they were super bright because they're LEDs. And I thought, man, I got to get those. And then he turned on his directional signals and they do the sequential thing, which I thought was pretty neat, admittedly. So you can shut it off if you want, but I think for the moment I'm going to keep it on. So now we're going to go ahead and get started on this. It's a kind of involved task, but not crazy. I am terrible at before and afters. Horrible. Big failing of mine. So I'm going to try to give you a before and after. This is the regular incandescent brake lights. Nothing too impressive. And we'll do all right, so we'll have lights on, tail lights there, brake light, and then blinkers. Nothing too special. So these taillights come from a company called Digitails. I'll put a link in the description in case you're curious about them. I can't even remember where I got them from. And that part of that is because it came, or they came, during a flurry of orders that I was making from various websites and collecting parts here. Because I have cars. That's component acquisition and retention syndrome. I have this tendency to go on sprees where I buy a bunch of parts for this car or for Declan's car, and then they sort of all show up at once. And I've got to stage them in boxes on a table someplace because it's just way too much stuff. Yeah, it's kind of a problem. So I never remember exactly where I got all the stuff that I ordered. I just know that I have it, and I get to put it in the car, and that makes me happy. All right, step one, remove the lens. to take this whole piece out. Digitails is really underselling it when they tell you that you have to loosen the bumper to get to the taillight housings. You pretty much have to take it off. So don't do like I did and remove too many bolts that are too difficult to remove. Well, let me show you where the key bolts are to move to get this thing out. So here's a bumper. Now, if you're a idiot like me, actually, I'm not going to take too much credit for being an idiot on this one. There's actually not any really good videos on how to remove the bumper the way that I need to remove it to do this work. Most of what you see in bumper removals on 70 Chevelles are going to be about completely disassembling it, taking all the brackets off, etc. Really what I just needed to do, I didn't realize it, is remove the whole bumper and bracket assembly. So let me show you where that is. So first, you're going to see these two open holes right here. This is right behind the taillight inside the trunk. There's two more over here. And then when you get underneath the bumper, like where the gas fill is, you'll see that there's two holes here. And then there were two holes holding the license plate bracket on. And those are really clamping the bumper to the valance, to this valance panel. So it's not really securing anything tightly, but it's a problem. So you've got a total of 2, 4, 6 bolts that you have to undo off the bumper, and then the 2 bolts for the license plate bracket. And then you just get underneath here. There's one, can't see it right now, but right up underneath there, and you can see through this hole, there's the bracket that slides under the body and mounts in. So you'll need to remove those as well. There's 2 of those, one on either side. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 10. Take those 10 bolts out and the whole thing is going to be able to slide off with the brackets attached. Like a moron, I actually took everything apart, as I thought that's what you had to do. So not only did I do those 10 bolts, but I also did the blind bolts, which you don't need to do these. These blind bolts are an absolute nightmare to take off when the bumper's on the car. And well, now I know why. That's not the way they're supposed to be assembled. All right, now that that nightmare's done, let's move on to the next step because we have our taillight housing out. So Digitail has given us a few pieces here to try to get this kit complete. So we've got the 2 LED panels, one for each side. They are labeled as driver's and passenger side. They're just going in with some double face tape. But before we put double face tape in, we have to throw our wires in. So these are sort of, kind of going to be tailed into or plugged into the existing taillights, but not 100%. So they gave us this harness, and what they want us to do is use these grommets, not Wallace, grommet. These little grommets that look oddly 3D printed. Yeah, they are. We are going to push the harness through them. There's got a little slot in them here. So we're going to push that through, making sure we have the right side in and out. And then we'll snap this in. There you go. One done. All snapped in place. Now, I just cleaned these off. These were filthy. So they don't need to be pristine clean. But I wanted to get them clean enough that I can stick the LED panels to them because they've got double stick tape. So let me wipe these down with alcohol just to be sure. I always like to keep this rubbing alcohol around. I get the 91% stuff. You can use acetone to do this, to clean something off and get a surface prepared for tape. But but I find that the alcohol does the same job on a relatively clean surface, but has the added benefit of not being as harsh as acetone. Acetone can strip paint and mar finishes. Usually the rubbing alcohol doesn't do me dirty, so we're going with that. All right, so now this is our driver's side. You can see on the housing, they have left hand or LH and right hand or RH already stamped on the housings. And then these coincide, and we are flipping our switch. There's a switch on the back of these, hopefully you can see that, that says sequential, non-sequential. That's for the turn signals to sort of float across the screen. I think the sequential is a cool little thing, so I'm going to leave it. So we're plugging in the panel first. Nice positive SNC. We're going to test fit, make sure everything's in place. Seems pretty good. All right. We're going to pull a little bit more slack out of the line because that was getting in the way. All right, driver's side's in place. Double checking that I'm on sequential. And popping her into place. That's it. Now we're all physically set up with these. Time for wiring. All right, the next step, they've given me this bundle of wire. This is, I mean, easily 3 feet of wire. I don't need it all. So I am going to take advantage of it. The lighting assembly, which is this piece, the guy with 3 wires coming out of it. In order to be able to get this mounted, I need to copy these wires over. I'm just going to attach wire to wire for the harness. That's what it tells me to do in the instructions. So that's what I'm going to do. But since I'm still going to have this housing at the end, I'm going to cut it off with a couple of inches to spare here so that if I need to, I can always splice into it again. I'm going to give myself plenty of slack here, but I'm not going to use all this cable. That's just ridiculous. The black I'm going to hold off on. I don't know how much of that I'll need because that's a ground that's going to get coupled up. And the same with the orange. But the brown, the yellow, and the green, I'm going to cut a bit shorter. Use our trimmers here, and we'll just take a little bit off each one of these guys. And then the same thing on our wiring harness here. Well, if you hadn't caught on to it before, this is day 2 of this particular activity because I started this late last night, ran into bumper fiascos and had to sort of abandon the project for the evening. It was just getting too buggy and too late. And then I came back out this evening and started it again. This is pretty simple. So I got everything wired up. You guys saw me just messing around with wiring. That was pretty straightforward. Very easy in terms of the instructions and directions on what to do. And I'm old hat now at using those little solder connectors. So everything's all buttoned up, everything's grounded. It's time now to test this out and see if these lights are working as intended. So I'm gonna leave you guys here, and then I'm gonna go into the car and work the lights. It should go without saying, of course, but I haven't actually put these in yet. They're just wired up. I didn't want to go through the whole hassle of getting them all installed and then finding out I had a wiring problem. So, test first. All right, first things first, we're going to try lights. So this is just running lights. Those look like running lights to me. Sweet. All right, now let's hit the brakes. Bingo, brakes are working. And left turn signal. Cool. And right turn signal, also working a treat. And just for giggles, we'll do hazards. Those are working too. Now that we're tested and working, time to put this thing all back together. So enjoy a little montage of me hooking the bumper back up, I guess. Last bit left before I mount this bumper is I'm just going to tape up the wires. I used the wire loom stuff, the F6 stuff that I got from WireCare in the engine compartment where I'm going to see everything and where it's likely I might be going back into those wires for something or another. But back here, if it's working, there's no expectation that I'm in here fiddling. And also, no one sees it. So I'm just worried about bundling and protecting these, so I'm just going to use the cheaper tape. All right, we showed you the befores. Now let's get to you with the afters. So we'll go lights. Pretty darn bright. Brakes. And then the coolest part of all, directionals. Overall, I think that's a pretty huge improvement. Don't think you can deny that one. Pretty good stuff. Very happy. Well, so there it is. We're done. If you're wondering why this video was late, why I published it late this week, well, those taillights were it. That was an unexpected journey. So the actual taillights themselves were pretty basic, pretty easy. Wiring was pretty easy. That didn't give me any troubles. But getting that darn bumper on and off was nowhere near as fun as you might think it would be. So that took a little extra time, but I really wanted to make sure I included that in. Truth be told, the entire video was edited and all ready to go. I just didn't have that segment into it. So that's why we're a little bit late this week getting it out. But overall, I'm pretty happy with what was ultimately kind of a pick and mix project. This was me doing little pieces at a time. This is what Project Car Living is, right? It's about stealing an hour or half an hour, maybe 2 hours, wherever you can, to do those little upgrades. It's unfortunately not as glamorous as all YouTube channels, where you watch it for an hour and you watch somebody go from front to back, beginning to end, they rebuild the whole car. The reality for most of us is that we can't pull that off. But I did go through my parts desk and dwindled that down a significant amount and got a bunch of things done that were really annoying me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching me put those things on, and really comment on the green air filter. What do you think? I've also got a black one that I might put on there, maybe the black top instead of the chrome. I don't know. I'm still messing around with it, trying to figure out what I want to do there. So clue me in, let me know, tell me what you think. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe as usual, and we'll see you next time. So until then, keep on throwing wrenches.